right. I am very happy to have today here Michelle Alexandria, an amazing producer who is particularly known for budgets, even though that's not all you do, I should also say this. But for this session, I want to focus on lower budgeted movies. And I'd like to talk to you about, what you have done in that section, because you're also not just a distributor, but you're also a financier and you are a producer, producing, distributing, financing. You do it all, and we want to know it all. So that's why I'm so grateful that you took the time today in doing this with me. And thank you for carving that out. I think our students at UCLA will be very happy to hear all the wise things you have to say. But before we dive into that, I always ask this because I'm always curious in regards to what inspired you to go into the film industry. That's always a curious question I have with everyone.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Jeanette, and thank you for having me. And I hope this is very helpful to the UCLA students. All I could say is you guys are in the right place. I've taken a couple of the courses at UCLA, and it was a long time ago, but I loved them. And if I had the time, I would have taken more if I could, but you guys are in the right place. Um, my answer is not as exciting as probably most people's answers because I didn't grow up thinking, oh, I want to be in the business or I want to make movies. It was nothing like that. It was just very organic. It was just one moment after the other. I kept tripping over in the industry. And just to start off, I am born and raised in Los Angeles. So that already put me at the right place at the right time, if you could say it like that. Um, I used to, when I was younger, and I used to hang out and party and all that. Partying can get you some jobs. I was hanging around a lot of, you know, people that Leonardo DiCaprio and they weren't as famous back then, but I was in that circle. And my job at the time, I had a completely different career, was in financing. So from a very young age, right out of high school, I became an assistant working for someone in the auto industry. And very quickly, I kept moving up because that was probably my strength. It was numbers, playing with numbers. And so I ended up being the finance director for Jaguar for many years, Land Rover Jaguar. And so we had a lot of wealthy clients that would come, and at that time cars were 80 to 100,000. Now they're probably, I don't know, 200,000. I don't even know anymore. But my job was working with the banks, working with the clients, with their incomes, trying to see what we can do for them, interest rates, all that. So by the time I got into the entertainment industry, the finance world was very well grained in my mind, and I could do things comfortably without working too hard. And in that same moment that I'm hanging out with these people in the industry, and not for any reason, just it's fun. I live in the area. They kept saying, "Oh, Michelle, you would do so great. You should, go to this acting school. You're always around the right people, and you're so smart. You should just go into the industry." And so, through the advice of a friend of mine who's very well known in the industry today, he suggested I go to this acting school. I go to the acting school, Beverly Hills Playhouse, a very nice school, and I'm taking these acting lessons. And every time I was on a set as an extra or doing whatever they, just going through the motions of the industry. By the way, extra work, I advise you all to do it. I know it sounds like, oh, it's beneath me, or oh, that's not what I want to do, or oh, I'm trying to be a big actor. Let me tell you, Tom Cruise did it, Brad Pitt did it. I learned more doing extra work, and I don't just mean as an actor. That's wasn't just I learned more as on these big sets with these big directors, with Bruce Willis, Harrison Ford, all these different people. I would sit quietly and I would observe. I wasn't the extra who sat around with the other extras talking about why my career isn't launching. I actually really paid attention. Through that, one of them was a show called 6 Feet Under. Um, they something happened, the actor didn't show up or something, and they came to the extras, they looked at me, and they saw that I was not socializing, they just picked me and they said, come with me. And that became my first SAG voucher, which I didn't
Wow.
value that.
Love
Yeah.
this show, by the way. I don't
Okay,
know how many
I
people
never
know it,
saw it,
but
but I
I
was
loved
in
it.
the scene with the main
Great.
cast, and they put me in a waitress uniform. It was at the Cat and the Fiddle on Sunset Boulevard, and that was my first SAG voucher. And then the next SAG voucher, I was doing some more extra work for a show that I never had seen. I didn't know it, but they kept bringing me back. And because my own, you bring your own clothes as an extra. Because I have a lot of business attire from working as a finance person, um, I just came to the set with these clothes and a few extras. So they kept putting me in working in the agent's office, and the agent was Ari Gold of the show Entourage. So they kept bringing me back until I finally said, okay, 10 episodes is or 10 days is enough. This is, I just want to get the feel of what the sets are like. But I watched everything they were doing. And I started, talking a little bit to certain people. And the funny thing is, guys, I ended up hiring some of the people on some of these sets on my own films later in the years because I just made those relationships. So that was nice of them to not think of me as this little, oh, she's just an extra, because they never know who somebody is, and they
Right.
well. But I was also very professional on my end. I came, did my job. I didn't try to get in the way. But I observed. So then, in that same token, I had some people ask me if I would help them produce a play. I had no idea what that meant. I didn't know what producing was. And, I had a very good job with a good, salary. It's not something I wanted to walk away from. So I started producing some theater in North Hollywood while I still kept my job. And slowly there was a transition that was happening because it shocked many people that I made money in theater, because these are 100 seats or less. And I guess they're notoriously known for not making money. You spend the money,
Right.
put it up, and we made like $4,000 at the time. That was early 2000s. So I guess that was a big deal. And I thought, well, why would you do this if you're not going to make money?
Yeah.
And they thought, well, that's strange of you to say, because people in the industry, in our level, we don't think about that. And I said, oh, that's all I think about.
Sure.
Why do anything unless you're going to make money? So I'm a money person. I
Right.
cars and
I
I
do
produce.
it. Right.
Yeah. So it kind of surprised them. So they said, well, can we use that money, that profit, to make a short film? And so then, we make a short film, and I'm learning what producing is. And then just little by little, it just organically happened that people started hiring me based on whatever my strength was. So whatever your guys' strength is, nurture it, because it becomes valuable in the industry regardless, whatever it may be. If you're artistic, if you're good with, being a home decorator, you could be a set designer, who knows? But even if you want to be something else in the industry, take whatever it is you naturally know
Yeah.
and apply that, and then that's your foot in the door.
Right.
So I kept, just doing my own financing thing, and next thing I know, I'm producing one movie, producing another. People with money were coming to me saying, Michelle, people are asking me for money for my film. What do you think? And more often than not, I would say, nah, no, don't put money in this film. Well, why? Well, it's a drama. They're putting their friends in it. There's no cast in it. How are they going to sell and make the money back? So my question to myself was, my first question always is, who is the target audience? And the second question is, what's the pathway to making the money back?
Right.
And most filmmakers said, oh, but Michelle, we get to make a movie and then the premiere. And I said, that's all great. I could just do that without losing somebody's money. We can all go to a premiere. It's Hollywood. So that was my mindset at the time. And I know that's not for everybody. Some people are online. They're, in other countries. They live in small towns. They don't have that. But now the world has become so small with, internet streaming, Wi-Fi, all that kind of stuff, that we don't have to hear those reasons anymore. Now you can have all of that, and you should always think of a pathway to make a film money. So because I had that mentality, I kept getting called in. So it was very organic. Now the funny part about this is, when I say I never thought about making, being in the entertainment industry or anything like that, I'm the oldest of 5 children. And growing up, I was the pain in the butt sibling that always had my camera, and I was always taking pictures of everything as a child. I just loved taking pictures. And my brothers would get mad, and I would say, "Oh no, come on, family, let's just pose. This will mean something to us later." And so from a very young age, I had this inner desire of capturing life. I loved to capture life. I love to look back on it. I love to, just grab every special moment, because as much as it's in our memory, how special is it when you can share it with others on paper or in a
Of
video?
course.
So this is, I'm an 80s kid, so this is before we had that technology. I still had the cameras. You had to go and drop the roll of film. I mean, even when I started doing all this, it was, on the sets, check the gate, check the gate. We had to make sure, because we were filming on film, and a $3 million film was a complete low budget. Like that was like doing like a $300,000 film today. And I was going on those sets, and I was watching everything they did. And especially on the camera side of things, I would pay a lot of close attention, and I would also, you know, pay a lot of attention to the line producer, the UPMs, seeing what they did, just because that was the more interesting part to me. And so in doing that, I slowly pulled out of my acting school. I was there for 4 years. And the funny part of the acting school was that I was always very technical about things. So even though I'm supposed to be an actor and I'm supposed to do my scene, and I would do it all, but I was also more about, well, we only have this much time, so we should take these lines out. We should do this. We should make the set like this. And even my own teacher, he said, Shell, you have very much of a producing mind. You want to just act and let the producers produce. And it was very hard for me,
Right.
because I just felt like, but I see the answers in my mind, and this would just be so much better to do
Right.
it. You would save money, you would save time, all that kind of stuff. So that's what brought me into it. It's people started pulling me in, and I don't regret it. I love it so much. I work very hard, but for those moments that you have fun, it's like, it's great, you know.
Here you were saying my story is not going to be that interesting and exciting. Your story is totally interesting and exciting on how you got in there. This is a
Oh, well,
fantastic story. I like the observation. I do believe, like you, observing is a way of learning, and really diving into things, deeply is a way of learning. Now, tell us what you do today.
so the way I like to explain it is, you have your movie from the very beginning to the very end, meaning
Right,
you have, I'm not going to go too far in the beginning. You have your script. I'm not
right,
going to, thinking about it. You have a script, you have the release. And there's a 5% part of that whole journey, which is where you're shooting the movie. Everybody thinks that's the end all be all, principal photography. Principal photography is a very small part of it. It is the most fun, as stressful as it is. Um, my movie in New Jersey, we just started filming today. So I go out there in a few weeks, but everybody always says, "Oh, Michelle, how come you're not there? You're not on set." I said, "Oh, that's not my part of the job. Pick a lane, stay in it, right? In whatever it is." I do the very beginning and the very end. I do all the hard work surrounding the principal photography. If I do my job right, principal photography goes easy. And if I did my job right in the first front part of the process, and principal photography goes well, meaning I hired the right crew, the right director, the camera, all that kind of stuff, then the end result is going to go well, because now my job is to get the film distributed, make the money, the marketing, answer to my investors. How are we doing? If you're going the film festival route, selecting the right film festivals to give your film the prestige it may need to market it a little bit more. Is it cost efficient to put it in theaters, or to just go straight to streaming? Is it cost efficient to go with this company who's only offering this much, where another company is offering so much more to you, yet this first company, delivers more? So there's all those decisions that I make. So I'm the very beginning and the very end of the journey.
So in the beginning, we're talking about, so someone sends you a script, and you read the script, and then you might have I mean, how does it work? You have comments. What do you do from there?
Yeah. So now for my position, I think it's a little different. It's not unique, but it's different. Now, because I come from the world of distribution. I forgot to mention that in my story. I'll just go back so this makes sense.
Yeah, go.
So while I was producing, when I started producing, um, I needed to be more involved in the business side of, who's selling the movie, how is it being
Right.
sold. So I flew myself out to the film markets at a very young age. We made the movie. I want to see the process, so I fly myself out to Cannes.
Yeah,
Little did I know that's the end all be all queen mother of all film
it is
markets.
correct.
So I went to Cannes. I walked the Palais, and here I'm in it right now. That's Cannes behind me, and I made relationships. One thing I cannot stress enough, guys, is make your relationships. It is very important. Follow up. Have a good business etiquette, demeanor. Don't send these long emails that obligate them. Offer them a cup of coffee, go out, make a relationship. Stay in touch with them. Even if they have nothing to offer, maybe you have something to offer them. And then later on, they are no longer an extra and now they have something to offer you. You just never know. Make your relationships.
Correct.
And I go to Cannes, I'm making these relationships. Without effort, I get hired on as an assistant to one of the distribution companies, to the sales agents. I'm meeting the buyers. The buyers are who pays for those international rights.
Right.
So I'm now making these relationships, and little by little, I start moving up. Another company hires me. Something goes wrong in Berlin, and they needed somebody. So they said, "Oh," the buyer said, "Call this woman, Michelle.
He's
She
a
knows the
fixer.
business." I get the job in Berlin. I fly out to Berlin, and now I'm selling their movies. I'm in Berlin, and they said, "Oh, Buenos Aires is coming up. We need a sales agent out there. Michelle, can you cover us?" They fly me out to Buenos Aires. I mean, I'm not even trying at this point. Now it's just
Right. Of
me picking, and that's just because they like to hire someone they know that's going to be
course.
there, show up.
And also responsible.
It shows responsibility. So that was just already in my nature. If it's not
Correct.
in your nature, guys, try to find that path, because it does help you on the business side of the industry. When you're creative, when you're a rock star and all that, yeah, you could do all the other stuff. But if you're on the business side of it, they do look at that.
Right.
So I have all these. Okay, so while I'm producing, financing is my day job. Everybody has a day job. I mean, distribution. I'm sorry. Distribution is my day job. So
Right.
I'm distributing by day and producing by night. So now let's go back to Michelle. Somebody sends you a script. What do you do?
Yeah.
I
When,
have this distribution part of my brain that
yeah.
looks at the script. And all I'm looking at is, what's the genre? Can I sell it? Who would buy it? Which territory would buy it? Which territory would not buy it? This is before streaming. Streaming changed everything. So we'll talk about that. So when I looked at the projects, that's what would help me determine if I'm going to come on board or not. The other big question is, you know, how much experience did somebody have? And, we hear this all the time. Oh, but, how is a first time director ever going to have a chance? Or this? No, 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 they have a chance. But with whose money at risk? So if you're a first time director and you're asking me to risk my investors' money, I'm probably going to say no. Go make something at your own risk and let me see. Now, we'll just go with directors for now. There's some directors who have done a series of commercials, or there is someone who wants to be a first time director and they've done they're a DP. Those people I'm going to put in the front line and say, okay, he's been a really good DP on these films. I'm going to trust him as a director. Or this guy has done a number of good commercials. I'm going to trust him as a director.
Right.
Studios will hire commercial directors. But if you're just, straight out of school and you're like, I just want to direct a movie. Okay, well then you bring the money and I will help you produce it. I'm not going
Right.
to risk somebody else's money. And that's the other thing. I am very I'm a bit brutally honest, I should say, when I talk to film investors and my financiers, and I really tell them, how it is, like what my risks are. I'll give you an example. Right now, there is a film that I just signed on with, and I very kindly told the filmmaker, this film I don't foresee it making money. I'm still going to take this film because there's an artistic level and an artistic value that this could be winning a lot of film festivals, maybe
Okay.
even Academy Award nomination, I think.
Right.
And that's just me using experience at that time. So
Right.
how do you have experience? It's just constantly doing things in the industry. And I'll tell you, for the films that I've made, I have learned from the 200 films that I tried to make and fail than I have learned from the films that I've made.
Of course. Do you
And
think it makes sense when someone comes to you with a script and it's a low budget movie, let's say, I don't know, $300,000 just for funsies, and they would say to you, I have a relationship with an actor that would charge me another 200,000, so now it's a $500,000 film, but the actor is like an A minus B plus. Would you advise them to do it that way, or would you say to them, do the movie at 300? And let's talk about a commercial genre. Let's say it's a, I don't know, romantic comedy or a thriller, something that, something like that. What would you tell them?
no, that's a great question, Jeanette, and that has come up quite a few times. In fact, that's kind of coming up with the Italian film.
Oh,
When you have an actor, so I always say this: the difference between a studio film and an independent film is what? It's marketing. I could
yes,
take a low budget $100,000 little horror film, and if Blumhouse takes it, or if Warner Brothers takes it, and they pump in a few $1 million or so much in marketing, we're gonna probably go see the movie, right?
right,
So an indie film does not have the marketing. So what's your next step of marketing? It's your actors, the script, maybe it was a best-selling novel or not, the genre, or maybe the director.
right.
So I kind of see, I don't know if this will work for everybody, but I kind of see, I'm a math person, so I see the process as a big algebraic equation, and
Right.
the release of the movie equals 100. And you have all these variables, A plus B plus C plus D. So if you have a really big actor, A, that's like 90. So you're almost there at 100. So you can get away with a little bit of money, not a known director, da 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 da. You're going to get to 100. If you're putting in, this new actor, or he's a friend of yours, okay, that's going to be one. So you better have another way to
91.
supplement 99, which means you need a lot of money, to pay. You need this, you need that. So there's all these different things. So it always has to equal 100. That's kind of how my brain sees it. And if you have a project that you want to shoot at 300,000, but you happen to know Ethan Hawke, okay, and Ethan Hawke is willing to shoot for 3 days for $200,000.
Right.
Number one, if you were to get that and he's your friend, you don't want to abuse that. You want to do no more than 2 takes and get as much footage as you can. And I'll tell you the reason why. Because when I present a film to a buyer and they see the name Ethan Hawke, the first question they're going to say is, how many minutes is he in the film? Out of
Interesting.
90 minutes. And if I say, oh, he's in it for 17 minutes, they're going to say, okay, so it's a big cameo. You don't want to trick your audience. You don't want to trick your buyers. You don't want to trick distribution, because we're going to see the film in the end, which means that if you're saying someone's in a movie, they need to be in the movie. If they're a cameo, you need to say it's a cameo.
Okay.
Now,
So
if you,
let's assume Ethan Hawke, in our example, is he is like a second lead.
yeah,
Let's,
so if he's in a second position, which is great, because usually title marquee actors don't want to lead a film.
right.
I usually say I always say cast in twos. All right. So if you're going to get a name actor, get two name actors. And even if it's an A minus actor, it's better to get two B plus actors, because no actor wants to carry a film because they know it and they feel it. They want to work with somebody of their equivalent. Does that make sense?
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll give you a couple of examples,
What if
right?
I only have money for one? What if I only have 200,000 for Ethan Hawke and the
So
other one would just have to be a really good actor that I can pay scale to? What about that?
okay, so now if sticking on this hypothetical, if
Yeah.
Ethan Hawke loves this and he says, I'm willing to do this, like I might have that with this Italian film for the female lead, then home run. But now if you're just doing, you're doing a film and there's two or three main roles, and you're trying to cast Ethan Hawke as the lead or the second position, and all your money's going to him, and now everybody else are going to be unknowns, and you're just paying them SAG scale or whatever it is, that's a little bit tougher. Now if you go a notch down from Ethan Hawke and you end up getting my mind is blanking on actors right now. You get the two guys from the Vampire Diaries, Ian
Yeah.
Somerhalder and Paul Wesley.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason why I'm saying that is it's a syndicated show. It's known worldwide. These are two actors that you may not know them by name, but you're going to know their show because it's well syndicated. And I look for that. And so maybe I have to pay each of them $100,000, but now at least they feel like, okay, we're working together. There's more commitment. It's easier to book the actor when they know another actor's. How many times have you guys heard the on a film, this actor signed on because the other actors were signed on? So
Correct.
if Cillian Murphy is on a movie, they're not even going to read the script. They're like, we're on it, right? So it's going to be the same. Now, if you don't have Cillian Murphy and you have, Bob Smith, we don't know who that is, they're going to read the script and they're going to say, okay, now you got to pay me $500,000 because I don't really want to do this movie. So I'll do it if you pay me a lot of money. If I say Ian Somerhalder is on the movie, it's kind of like he vetted the project already. So then the other actor comes on. And then how do you feel? So if I have to choose between a movie with, Ethan Hawke and then, and me trying to get him for 200,000, I think it would be a lot more difficult to get him to begin with if there is no one else, because I don't know how much you guys have ever spoken to agents or managers, but the question will be, who's the director? And if you just say, oh, Bob Jones, nobody they're going to say, okay, well, who else is going to be in this, or who are you pursuing?
Yes.
That is a question I get every single time when I am trying to pursue a name actor.
Right. So you basically have to have, well, I like your syndication idea. So when you have a show that's being syndicated, that means people know the show. The actors have value because of the syndication nature of the show. So you would rather than say, I'm going to take two syndication actors, I give them each 100 because I can sell it because people know of them. I rather do that than have Ethan Hawke in the lead and a very good actor. I'm just going to say it is a good actor opposite them, but they're not known. So you would prefer the $200,000 guys more than the stronger actor with a strong but unknown first lead.
Yeah, because I also think it's going to be the challenge of even getting an actor of a certain caliber with
Okay.
unknowns is already a struggle in itself.
Okay, so it's not about what you could sell. You could sell Ethan Hawke, but you believe that it's going to be harder to get Ethan Hawke given this scenario.
Yeah, and also, I mean, honestly, in my experience, I feel like I could probably sell a movie with the two other guys because there's two versus the one who's a non.
Interesting. So let's stick to that example. So you have a movie with the two guys from the Vampire Show, and the movie is $500,000. The director might not be super experienced, but it's also not a first timer. How do you sell that? Where do you sell that? And how much money can you make knowing that it's a $500,000 budget?
Yeah. So when you have cast with that recognition, the director becomes irrelevant. You don't have to. You don't. If anything, it props him up. It doesn't weigh the film down. Okay.
Okay. So that could be a first timer.
It could be a first timer. You just have to, again, that's where then you want to cast in twos, because is one actor gonna sign on with an unknown? I just actually had this experience and I walked away from the film.
Right.
Is an Ethan Hawke gonna sign on with an unknown actor versus would Ian sign on with an unknown actor? Maybe he would because his buddy Paul is signing on, or another actor from another syndicated show, and again, it doesn't have to be a syndicated show, but just actors where at least their credits are recognizable.
So in our example, we have a $500,000 movie. We have two recognizable actors per your preference from a syndicated show. And the movie again is 500. So we'll give it to you. Where do you take it? How much money do you make?
Yeah. So now we're in the world of streaming. So it's and let me just say one more thing, Jeanette. If you have an opportunity to get Ethan Hawke, let's just go back to that.
Yeah.
If it works out, by all means, get it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying decline Ethan Hawke because you're going to pursue them. I'm just saying that have different possibilities.
Smart.
You never know who your investors are going to be. You don't know if the investors are going to say, oh, but I really want my wife to be in it, and
Correct.
it's more fitting if it was. You just don't know.
He
So
doesn't.
until you know those things, you want to have the definition of a producer. You have a plan A, plan B, plan C, D, all the way to Z. So, and then you apply that in your personal life, like, oh, if we want to eat here and the restaurant's closed, and we're going to go here or here. Your brain always is thinking of that. So you always want to go in producing with a lot of different scenarios and opportunities in mind, because like I said, that formula that equals 100, those variables are constantly changing, constantly. So you're always aiming at a moving target. What do they say about producers? It's you're on a bike going down a hill with no brakes, and the bike's on fire and everything's on fire. That's the definition of a producer. So,
Oh
and
my
then
God.
even when you finally get it all settled, then, and I'm going through this right now, then everything falls apart. I'm right now having a hard time, with the film and with SAG escrow agreements, and the film almost got stopped today,
Oh no.
because of that. Yeah, but this is, again, it's part of the journey. So it's solving those problems. So now going back to how much money would it make? So part of my job as acquisitions in the distribution side is I make projections. I
Yeah.
work very hard to make these projections. I ask a lot of questions. Again, that equation. I always have all those variables: A, B, C, D. Who's the director? What's the genre? Who's the potential cast? And I ask the filmmakers to give me some idea of, 5 or 6 different actors of who they're looking to pursue. What's the budget of the film? So in my brain, I can determine production quality. So that's an advantage that I have as a producer working in the world of distribution. A lot of the distributors, they don't know. They don't know what does a film, what can you do with 500,000? Well, it also
Mhm.
depends on the filmmaker. There's some filmmakers I can give them 500,000 and they can make, a Michael Bay looking film. And then
Right.
there's some who I give 1 million and it just looks like a kid with a phone and shooting in the backyard. And I say, oh my God, where did the other 95% of the budget go? So it just depends. But the production quality is also going to be huge. So I have to crystal ball that and say, and those disclaimers are always on the projections. You have a $500,000 film. You're casting either Ethan Hawke or possibly Ian and Paul from these, and it's a sci-fi horror, let's just
Mhm.
say. Um, and the director is unknown, Bob Smith, right? I'm looking at the genre. The genre is a very strong genre: sci-fi, horror. Those two are good. Whether you get this type of an actor or those two actors who are just one notch down, those are going to be good. And your budget is 500,000, so I'm going to imagine the production quality, but I'm going to also know that with a budget of 500,000, I'm not going to expect a theatrical release
Right.
because it's just too low and too expensive. So I'm going to assume this is going to be streaming or maybe a Netflix deal or so. On that, I would start doing my projections, a low and a high. I know there's a lot of low, medium, highs.
Right.
Everybody has seen that. The medium means nothing. I usually tell them take the low, cut it in half, and those are your numbers. But I do make a low and a high, and I do that a lot for the investors. And so I would guesstimate on this type of film, a low would be 300,000. I think a high would be, on this hypothetical, maybe 700,000. And they say, "Oh, that's such a low number. It only can make 700,000." Of course, there's always room to make more, but I'm very conservative when it comes
You're
to the height.
conservative. I like that.
Blow it up. I know a lot of, even my friends, in distribution, they might increase it a little bit just to try to get the film. I just say for what it is, and I do a lot of homework on where the actor is today, and so I have to always put that disclaimer on, based on if this movie was made today, because a year from now, if you get the financing today, you do development, pre-production, shoot the movie, editing, post, release, it's a year from now, maybe that actor has exploded into the next James Cameron film, or maybe the actor got in trouble at the hotel, and then that
Well,
happens.
right.
So
When you say
those
300, are you including the US? What is the number? Is it international? What is that?
those are worldwide. I was giving you
Okay, got
worldwide,
it.
but there is a line for North America, Canada, and the US. So I always do
Right.
worldwide,
What
because
is how do you separate those two when you do calculations for a movie like this? what is the international worth in your mind and what is
Well,
the US worth?
okay, so back in the old days when I was first doing this, it was more of a 70-30. So
Yeah,
70% was more international, 30% US. Back in those days, like I said, I'm an 80s kid, so it was more, you had very specific networks. Then what happens? Then Netflix becomes the next studio.
right,
HBO becomes studio equivalent. So you have, all of those parameters that have changed. Now the domestic is the bigger chunk. So it's almost a percentage, but I usually base a lot of my numbers off of Germany. Funny
interesting.
enough, Germany is a very good paying country. They're very efficient. They pay on time, um, and they're pretty accurate. They have a lot of theaters in the country, based on the population. And so I usually call my buyers. I usually ask them. That's my secret sauce, that I have, that I know not everybody has. But as a producer, I call the buyer and say, hey, what would you pay to have a sci-fi horror $500,000 budget starring Ethan
With
Hawke?
this egg, yeah, that's
And if
great.
he says,
And
well,
then what do they tell you?
so if
What's
he
the
says,
range?
oh, Michelle, I would pay 75,000 for 5 years, right?
That's
Then I start calculating all the other countries. Now China is another specialty, and there's a lot of, obstacles when selling to China, and, government's very much involved and stuff. So I ask them too. And usually I usually ask my Australian buyers as well. I used to work for an Australian company. So then I take those and I'll gauge that. And then I do talk to usually one or two of the people in the US. But US is already pretty easy because if I'm taking actors that I already know, which you filmmakers, all the filmmakers here listening, you guys are going to know that too, just from experience. You already know. If I say Leonardo DiCaprio, you already know where he's at without, you don't need to go and do your research and all that.
course.
Maybe my aunt in France does because she's like, Leo who? She just doesn't know. But you already know certain people that what their caliber is. But if you say, you know oh well, we want to attach Simon Baker, many people don't know who that is, but I know who he is, and I know that his show, The Mentalist, even though we don't see that here anymore, it's been the number one show in France for a very long time.
Yeah, I like the show.
That
I
means
think
to
it's
me
still
it's
on
good.
the streamer, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably,
So,
yeah. And
so
so
when you, yeah,
but I was just going to say what that means, Jeanette, is that I'll probably have more sales in Europe on a
right.
particular film with that actor than I would in the US.
That's where I was going with this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you have to balance it out. So your projections are based on that moment, but I always say do not go based on projections. It just gives you a guideline. So if you producers can get projections, it's very helpful to you down the line, especially if you're trying to get investors to look at, the pathway
oh
to.
yeah, you need them for that. I mean, we don't do anything with our projections. I don't care what the budget range is. I want to know what the potential revenues are. So this is a great example because it's a lower budget movie, and you're saying I'm wrapping my numbers around Germany. If Germany is strong, I can figure out what the other numbers should be because it's kind of a leading path for me.
Mhm.
And the US, you say, is actually for you easier. I find the US difficult, so I'm very impressed. So how do you deal with the US on a movie like this in our example?
Well, I always try to go to the top first.
Okay, so you go to like a Netflix. Do you see this more like a streamer film? That's more of a streaming movie.
Well, the reason I do see, yes, the answer is yes, but the
Yeah,
reason I do is strictly because of the budget. So, indie, there's no license to drive today. Everybody can make a movie. My son makes a movie. We're all making movies. I think, 20 years ago, there was only 10 movies released, on a weekend. And now there's like 100 movies
so
released a
many.
week. So you have so many independent films because all of us can make a movie. I'm going to Cinegear in a couple of days, and you have people from all spectrums of the industry and not, who are there to learn how to get the equipment to make the movie they need to.
Right.
So with that, there's a lot more for an acquisitions department to see. So I've been head of acquisitions for a long time in the distribution world, as well as sales. And so I would watch 30, 40 movies a month just to pick maybe one or two, maybe one or two.
Oh,
And you have to become selective and really just take the best one that you can, but then
Yeah.
the best one, you're bidding against another company who's also trying to get that film.
Mhm.
So it there's a lot of streaming services also, and so um I
For this kind of movie, let's,
I like to start at the top.
yeah, where
Yeah.
would you take it? So if I would give you this movie, we decided we're going to be 500,000. This movie's not finished, but we know we take the actors that we talked about.
Mhm.
Are you going to talk to the streamers as we're putting the movie together, or are you going to wait until the movie's finished?
Well, if I cast a recognizable actor, then
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to them early.
Oh, good.
Yes. Now, if I'm newer in the business and I'm not casting a recognizable actor, the chances are they're going to say, "Come back to me with your
When
completed."
it's done. Right.
That's the reality, and that's just because we don't all have the bandwidth to take everybody's films into consideration without seeing the film. We don't know what you're going to produce.
Right.
Now, if you're Luc Besson, you can get the pre-sales of everything because you're Luc Besson, and you
Yeah.
can go make, was it Valkyrie? Was that the movie?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
make
I
that
think
movie
whatever. Yeah.
all on pre-sales.
Yeah. Yeah. I think pre-sales are harder for this budget range, but I think projections are important because investors want to see them. So you say we have the actors, we have the director, we know that with script, we're talking to the US, you start up on the higher level, and then you kind of work your way down. What would you then tell the producer the US would be valued at if you kind of go that route?
On a hypothetical film, I would
Yeah, all hypothetical. We're not holding you to it. I'm just
yeah,
trying
no,
to
no,
make
no,
an
meaning
example.
that particular example,
Yeah.
sci-fi horror film,
Yes.
I would probably say about 150.
Right. So that's about, was it 40%, 30%, something like that? Right.
Well, as I was saying, it used to be the international made more money.
Right.
The US that makes more money on those type of films.
On
So
those type of things.
um so the US is going to usually be the bread and butter. Now, let's take a different hypothetical.
Yeah.
Let's take a faith-based film.
Yeah.
They're very valuable right now. So
Oh,
if you're
wow.
doing a faith-based film and you're doing it for 250,000,
Okay.
I'm gonna have more hope in making money on that. My projections are gonna be much more favorable
Wow.
than on a sci-fi horror right now at 500,000. So
Interesting.
because the 500,000, you've already made it clear to me that the film's really being made for 300,000. So I know the production quality is going to be made for the same amount pretty much as the
Yeah, because we're paying the actors. Correct. So it's paid. And that's interesting. So if you can choose a genre right now for these low budget movies, would the faith genre be your favorite genre that you would choose in this low budget range of like $300,000 kind of movies? Yeah.
this is personally
Yeah.
right now, yes. If you guys want to make the easier route, I would just say simply avoid drama. That's all I'm
Yeah.
gonna
So
say.
easy route is what genre?
Well, horror is
Okay,
always going to be the
still.
easy route
Got it.
because
Even more than faith?
I personally, for me, faith is the breadwinner for me, but
Good.
that's because that's my.
Personal.
It's not that it's personal. It's just those are my resources. So
Got it.
my personal resources in financiers and distribution are stronger in faith.
In the faith.
Now I have friends that are at Plumhouse, and the
Yeah, okay. So
I
for you, if someone comes to you, which is what we're going to get to, right? They would be in very good hands if they come to you with a faith-based subject matter on a movie that's maybe between 250 and 300.
yes,
That's one.
yes.
And then how much money can you make with that movie for them?
Probably 300 to 500,000.
That's
The
great.
goal is for me to always just break even. And
Yeah,
when films do make money, I'm really happy. I did this one film, um, just a family film. We had a young boy and a dog, and
yeah,
we had the journey. The
yeah,
boy has to get to the White House. And that film, Redbox used to be a big thing back in those
yeah.
days. And my film, I was the co-producer on it. Um, it was number one on Redbox for a month. It did really, really well financially.
So are you saying you're also good with family films then
Yeah,
in
well,
your
family and
genre?
the faith base are kind of they're not in the same category, but they are. It's the same audience, kind of.
Right.
And so you have a lot of families staying at home watching films today. And so those family films, they just do really well. So one of the films I'm trying to make, it's a family film, mother, father, the kids. Um, you want to be careful what you mix into the films because it does get a little bit tricky. Uh, if what was my very first question I told you guys? Who's your target audience? If your
Right.
audience is a faith film, then you want to consider not putting anything that could be considered, I don't know what the right word is,
Challenging
politically
in the
charged or
faith.
anything. Yeah, just keep it simple, lean in. And I know there's the artistic side of you guys where you want to be daring. If you want to do that, go for it. But if you want to minimize the hardship of revenue coming back, keep it simple. Again, know your audience and lean into it.
Yeah.
So if you're doing faith, don't go heavy Jesus because then that limits the audience. You just keep it to a certain amount. And that's a lot of the just for Can that just finished. I had a lot of that. I get a lot of action horror requests, but when I say action horror, it means more like, the Terminator. It's not like the horror that like
So it's not like the slasher horror.
no, I mean slasher
Right.
horror, those are a completely different category, but
Yeah.
it's not like the horror that like blood and all that kind of stuff and scary
Mhm.
stuff. It's more like
Mhm.
the Terminator, I don't know if that's considered even horror anymore, but that's considered like an action horror. And those do really well because anything with action does really well.
Okay.
So, and you don't have to have as big of cast. That's the other thing is that when the genre is a selling genre, then you don't have to put as much into cast. And I'm not
Um,
saying that go weak on that. Definitely always get the best you can. If you can get Jason Statham, go for it. But action tends to do really well. When I say action, people are probably saying, Michelle, we don't have the money for action. It could simply be boxing, jujitsu, with good sounds, get
Good stunts.
a chase. It could just be a running chase, a lot of running. Tom
Yeah,
Cruise is
yeah.
the master of,
Fast pace.
all the running, and you
Right.
get excited to see him. He's chasing or being chased. And
Right.
so those tend to do well, and I think now with the technology of like Unreal Engine and all these,
Mhm.
AI, all these different things that we have, we can visually make it look impressive. But we do know, I had a couple of films that came to me one market, and the guy was very proud, and he had the chip on his shoulder, and I've seen that many times before. And he said, here, Michelle, watch this trailer. So I watched it, and I said, okay. And he said, how much do you think that was made for? And I said, about 100,000. And he just, whoa, wait, why? This looks like $1 million film. I said, it does, but I could tell you that if you made this for more than 100,000, then that was a waste of money.
Oh
And
my
he was a
God.
little bit offended. I wasn't trying to offend him. I was just saying that for projection purposes, this is what I'm going to be able to sell it for. And he asked why. And I said, well, I see the locations. You have two. I see the cast. I don't know any of them. You are the director. I don't know you. My IMDb Pro, first thing on my phone, I'll look you up. And okay, you have a couple of plays you've done, student plays. Okay, so with that, this film should not have been more than 100,000. Otherwise, I'm going to ask you, where did that money go? And it's not to be disrespectful. I'm just
Yeah.
completely thinking numbers and
Right.
how do I recoup it and what am I going to sell it for? So if I go to my buyer in Germany, that is what he's going to say. Oh, Michelle, it's this, that. Okay, I don't know any of the cast. It's a nice little film. I'll offer you 15,000. Okay,
There you go.
And so for me, it's all math, and
Right.
I know that's not very sexy. It's
No,
just
I think it's totally sexy. You're talking to a financier. To me, it's sexy. The people in my class are in the advanced finance class. For them, it's sexy too. So we're talking numbers, and that's why I keep pushing back on. That's why I keep asking about numbers, because I think you're absolutely right. That's what matters. Now, you just went to the Cannes Film Festival and you started talking about what you saw that works. What works?
again, faith, um, action, sci-fi, they do very well. Family films. Another thing that I get a handful of requests for are series.
Mm-hmm.
Now, series I know are not as easy, but what that means in the indie film world is that we shoot the season, whether it's a, 3-part miniseries, a 6 to 10 to 12 episodic at 30 minutes each, and then you sell it as a whole season,
Interesting.
which means, you have to get a little bit more funding to shoot all of that and have your breaks at the appropriate time. But I do get quite a few requests for series. I don't get as much of those in acquisitions from independent filmmakers. I try to, but
Get you some then.
it's just a little bit harder of an obstacle, because if someone gets $1 million, they want to shoot a 2-hour movie for $1 million rather than a 6-hour movie.
Can you
So
make us? So when you say you want series, are you saying that you would? I mean, obviously, I don't know. I don't know. Can you make a series for $1 million?
I mean, you can make Titanic the way James Cameron made it. You can make it in a swimming pool, or you can make it in a bathtub.
I
There's
hear you.
movies
All
that
right.
are
So
Titanic.
series is something that's in demand, is what you're saying. That's
Yeah, they like to buy a series. Yeah, so if you made, you know, a 30 minutes for 100,000, that's very possible. I mean, I have
wow.
filmmakers making 2-hour movies with 100,000.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's a film that just came my way that I had to respectfully decline just because the storyline is not for me. But um, I never take movies that have children being killed in it. That's just
Oh,
my thing.
yeah. No, it's
And but it's a well-written script, and she's shooting this non-union film. Well, I advise her to go non-union in this case for 80,000.
mm-hmm.
So for 80,000 on location, you're going to have to fly your talent. On economy, you don't have the budget to do first class. As some of you guys know, when you're with the SAG film, which most of my films are, business class is required, per diems are required, a minimum pay is required.
Right,
And so you have a lot of rules to abide by. And then whatever money you do pay all your actors, you have to take that same amount of money and give it to SAG to hold it, just in case you default, unless you get escrow agreements.
right. So
So
the people that are in my class, if they were to come to you and work with you, in what capacity would you work with them? Remember, we're talking about people in this class. There are people that have some experience they know how to finance a movie. They know what, because the genres you mentioned, other genres, I drill into them. They know what genres sell. They know that the script is important, can't just be,
yeah.
mediocre. In what way would you, if you wanted to, work with them?
I'm really open. Number one, I have to like the project.
Yes.
And I would say maybe 30% of the time the project's not for me. I don't want to say I dislike it. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
I don't do horrors. I know I have a handful of successful horrors under my name. My partner at the time, very big into horror. He's a master of that genre,
Hmm.
and I would bring in the money because you know my investor would say, I have this much money, I really want to do a horror film, and I would say, okay, it's your money, let me just do it. Now I'm at a position where I just respectfully decline the money just because I don't want to do that genre, but that's me personally. It's a very good genre. It's a very financially, good genre to do. um, I think actually it's the most money making genre of all, to be honest with you. um, but I come on in a lot of different ways, and one of the ways I see myself utilized often is, Michelle, we need to, they hire the casting director to get their cast, but for their leads, Michelle, what actors can I pursue that's going to make me the best money? And I have a lot of good relationships with the agents and managers, so I go to the agents and managers who I know I can work well with, and I look at their client list, and I'll say, okay, these actors have some value here for the genre that you're doing. So now if you're doing, a certain genre, and then you're getting an actor who's known for a completely different genre, but he's known, that becomes a little bit tricky. Now if it's a big budget film, they can do that, get away with it. Jim Carrey went from being comedy to,
I did that a lot. I cast a lot opposite genre because I get the actors for cheaper, and I get an A-level actor for a third of what they normally cost because I want to play a different
yes,
genre. Yeah,
yes, but you have, an
it's a more
audience.
expensive movie. Yeah,
Yeah, an audience could be very loyal, and it's like, wait, we like
Correct. They might not like it. I was lucky so far. They liked it, but they
yeah,
might not. You're absolutely right. I mean, we have seen movies with James. What is it? What the example you gave? I've seen movies with him where I did not like him in that genre. Jim Carrey. To your point, right?
yeah.
So you
But if you're
want, so
doing it with Kate
basically,
Winslet in
right?
Titanic, it's like, wait, now you have the two actors. If it was
Yes.
just Jim Carrey
Okay.
and
Okay, that's
unknowns,
fine.
how would it do? But you had two actors, and
Right.
so
So a producer could come to you and say, in this example that you just made, to help them package, basically is what you're saying.
yeah, to help them package. I don't advertise this, but
No, of
I
course not. No, but
I
that's why I want to say,
yeah,
tell us, what would benefit you and them, because I don't want all these students that I have calling you up saying, on your video, you said you would package. So now I'm going to call you like, go away. That's not all I do. You know,
well,
so that's what I'm
I
saying.
have
What do
the
you
investors
prefer?
that I represent that they look for certain types of films. So,
Yes, of course.
this morning I just sent my investor that Western. And, I had to tell him, like, okay, this is what's in the story. I personally don't like it, but my agreement with you is I will show you what I have that I think could be viable. Now, in this particular film, I'll just give you this example. You don't see any harm happening to any children, but it's in the storyline that children are killed, young children. Now, I went to Paris Rendezvous a couple times. That's the film market in January in Paris. And it's a lot of German, primarily German buyers.
Yeah.
And I was sitting with one of my bigger buyers in the theater watching a screener with a very well known French actor. And in that movie, um, the good guy's chasing the bad guy. They're passing a woman pushing a stroller. The bad guy grabs the baby out of the stroller and throws it into the river. So the good guy, the cop, had to stop chasing him and go after the baby. In that same moment, my buyer said, "Oh, we're out of here. Get up." And he started walking out. And they said, "Oh, why?" And he said, "You can't have that." You just don't know. But I'm sure another buyer bought the movie because the lead actor, he's a very well known French
Mhm.
actor. So it just depends. And so my investor, I just sent him the film and I just said, it's not my cup of tea, but my agreement is to show you what could still sell. And because this is a Western, there is a demand for Westerns. There is
Okay,
a
so Western is one.
Westerns. If yeah,
So a
it's
certain kind
expensive to
of
have the
product
Westerns.
would basically be something that you would look for. So we established faith. You like sci-fi, action, horror, but not slashy. You like the Western in this kind of situation. So people could come to you with projects that meet the genre that you like. They could come to you, but couldn't I think they could come to you in two capacities. One, help them produce it, help them finance it, help them distribute it. Am I wrong about this?
No, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
And and rather than specify what genres I like, it's best to really I really like all genres because it really depends on the film. You
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
here I am saying I don't like horror, but again, Terminator, I could watch that movie over and over and over again. I don't know why. I
Mhm.
just think it's a really good movie.
Mhm.
And dramas are like virtually impossible to sell.
Oh,
But
yeah.
if you make a good drama, I just took one on in the film in Italy because it's so beautifully artistic. It's a very a love letter to women type of
Hey.
film. And I'm not that person that's like, oh, we got to do women's films, or I'm not that. I'm just, what sells. I want Back to the Future. I want those movies. But if I see that a drama is so well written that you just can't pass up on it, and if you guys can cast it well, and even if it's unknown, but you get good, strong talent, like that's where if you're getting an unknown, you have to get strong talent. So the lead actress, actually, in this case, she's not an unknown, but she's not known. She has a lot of strong credits. If you see her credits, you're going to know all the movies that she's had small parts in.
Yeah.
So that's an easier sell than an unknown. And she's a strong actress. I know that's subjective, but I think over the years, when enough people notice that she's a strong actress, then
Right.
you know that your opinion is valid. And there is room for a cameo role that they're going to offer $100,000 for 3 days of shooting. So $33,000 a day, that's not bad. You can get a decent name You have to fly them out to Italy for diems, hotels, black car service, all that kind of stuff. Um, but you can get a nice little name for that because a lot of them might just say, I really like this script. This is an homage to women, or
Mhm.
whatever it might be. Or I get a 3-day trip in Italy. Whatever their reason is, even though, so the actress that we're pursuing, she's in a Marvel movie. She's very well known in a Marvel movie. And she may just take it simply for the fact that we're shooting in Tuscany, or it's,
Yeah.
the storyline, you know, the, God, who's the actress? I love A Moment in Time with Christopher Reeve.
Oh my
Jane
God.
Seymour.
Yeah.
Jane Seymour. She just did this movie that. So I'm the advisory board member on the Burbank Film Festival. I love this film festival. I've been there since the beginning. As an attendee, and then I became part of their team. And last year, the award-winning film was a very artsy film starring Jane Seymour. The production quality was very independent. You could see all of that, very simple. But the story was based on a true story of a woman who had dementia. And it was just such a beautiful movie. And she was so proud of this film that she took it on. So, that's Jane Seymour. She's a great name, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Yes.
so the film, I know the sales agency that sells the film, and from when I last spoke to him, he's doing okay with it.
Right.
Just because you have Jane Seymour, and it's the type of movie that you would just have the one lead. That's a movie where you just have that one person you're casting. You don't cast in twos. It does depend on the storyline, but you don't cast in twos on that one.
Right. Right. Right.
So that
Um,
one, it doesn't matter that there were unknowns all around her. But you have to go SAG for all of that, which changes the tier of the cost of everything. But again, it was appropriate. Have
right.
her cast
Right.
that
My
female
God,
lead,
that's
pay all the money into her, and
yeah.
beautiful movie, and it wins tons of festivals. So
Right. So when you work with your investors and you have a small budget movie, do they pay for all the entire budget?
no, no, I've had a couple who do, and if they want to do that, I'm okay with that. But most of my investors, they usually want to be a percentage. So usually I get letters of intent from my investors, and so now does that mean that they can back out later? Absolutely, that's their
Mm.
money. They have every right. But if I mean, very rarely has that happened. But if I get their interest, in some capacity that they're willing to do a letter of intent, it helps the other filmmaker, get more money. I mean, there's been many times, Jeanette, where I'll get a letter of intent from one investor, let's just say $500,000 film, and I'm looking for 5 investors at 100,000 each, or 400,000, because I have tax incentives or something like that. And so then, if I get one investor to just do $100,000 letter of intent, and I'm out there trying to get more financing, and I say, oh, I have a $500,000 film, 100,000 is tax credits from the state, another 100,000 is equity from a financier, that that baits the scenario and the conversation to bring another investor in and say, oh, okay, and if I'm asking that investor for 100,000, he or she might just say, you know what, let me just buy them out. Let me just do the whole thing, the 400,000. And that's happened on a couple of films. And that's fine. That works out that way. But I don't push one way or another. I'm kind of the type that likes to break up my money and put it in different stocks, rather
Makes
than all in
sense.
one basket. But I know the all in one basket tends to be the winners. I'm just a little bit more traditional and conservative on those things. So
Well, they could be the winners. They could also not be the winners
yeah,
because, well, no.
exactly. I mean,
And I
I
think it's
feel
much better to put to go the different basket route, to be honest with you. I always tell people if someone gives you 10 million for a movie, split it up in three and do the proper financing route that we know.
Yeah, it really just depends. This is an industry. I came from the auto industry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When there was a Jaguar XKR, that car was consistent no matter who I sold it to.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the same. Every film is so uniquely different. It
Mm.
has their own DNA. So if I get a chance to invest in James Cameron's next Avatar,
Of
I have
course.
an
Yeah,
investor
of
who, well, you better believe I'm going to put 100% of everything I
course.
have
Yeah.
into him because he has the world record of
Okay.
filmmaking. He is
Yes.
the GOAT of all, right? So the top 3 movies in the world in history, 2 of
Yeah.
them are his. or something like that. The top five, three, no, top five, I think three are his. And then of course George Lucas. And then the only other one, I think maybe Michael Bay or something, but those are studio pictures, very different from James Cameron, who writes, directs, he creates the DNA. He's the mother and the father.
Yeah.
Well, John Landau, his partner, but it's really the mind of James Cameron. So it just depends on who it is. You have to weigh it out, and you have to take case by case basis, just like in buying a stock or buying a property. You can't just say, oh, that house looks really nice, because one house could be in Beverly Hills, one house can be in, an area that's just questionable, and you just don't know. And then one house could be in a new build in Las Vegas, and you're going to say, well, wait, which one? Maybe that film already maxed out. Well, that area has too much crime. This one is, less.
Yeah, it's
You
very
just
good
don't know. So they
comparison.
all have their own thing, and if you can somehow just see that equation, you just want to get to 100. You want to just
Right.
make it perfect.
So my last question for you, because you did a lot of things that I actually wanted to ask in it. You already just talked about it. The last question I have for you, because I took so much time, is knowing that you're going to you're dealing with people in this course that know that strong content is important, that know that a balanced finance plan is important. They understand the difference between their different budget ranges. What advice would you give them looking at the way the industry works today?
Sorry about that. I thought I shut off the thing.
No.
So one thing that I tend to find very important, which has saved me a lot in the industry, is that for whatever reason, we deal with a lot of ego, with a lot of pride. 2 plus 2 is always going to be 4. If you can make 2 plus 2 equal 10, please call me and tell me your secret. But the numbers are always going to be the numbers, okay? Films are always going to be made, but you're always going to have a lot of people who are going to upset you. I'm dealing with this in the last few weeks, where one of the producers I'm working with has already wanted to fire another person 5 times, and I keep rescuing that person because it's not that person, it's his representatives. And they just make things a little bit harder. And I have to keep calling the partner and saying, well, this is just how they are. And he says, well, if that's how they are, then, screw this and just let them go. We'll recast. We don't have to do that, because if you plan on being in this industry for a long time, you're going to learn that the egos and the problems are inevitable. There is no way you can, no matter how perfect you are, nothing goes smoothly. So if you can plan that in your mind and just strengthen up and know, okay, I just have to hold my breath for just a little bit to get through it, and then it pays off, you're going to do okay. And now my partner is okay with this messy situation we've been dealing with, who I've dealt with, this set of representatives many times. So I already know. And he said, Michelle, how do you keep your cool? How do you, they're BSing us, and they're tricking us, and they're lying to us. And it's like, yeah, they do it every time, and I already know it in my mind. And so, when I make my
You
offer,
expect it.
I just shape it in a way knowing that this is going to happen.
Right. So deal with ego is your advice. Be aware of it.
Find your peace within you, and just know that, number one, no matter how bad something is, it's temporary, but also no matter how great something is, it's temporary. And even if you do the best TV series in the world, Friends, look, that even comes to an end. It all, everything is temporary. But if you love to create, and if you guys are like me, the ones listening to these courses with Jeanette, you probably have a little bit more of the business mind, but that's its own way of creating as well.
True.
And I can't lie, I love a good problem. When they come to me, and just last week they called me, it was my birthday, and I didn't want to bother you on your birthday. I said, bother me, it's okay. And he said, oh, Michelle, I forget what the problem was. It was something about the money and SAG. And I said, oh, no, all you have to do is this, and that. And he said, oh, I didn't know that. And I said, yeah, you should have just called me yesterday. Now you went to bed stressed, and I had the answer in my head. I love a good problem. No problem. We could solve it. Yeah, but that person's being difficult. Oh, you know what? Let me talk to that person. I can handle him. I don't get upset when they, yesterday, a friend of mine, he's a well-established director, but he feels burned by another filmmaker I worked with who's a very good, efficient guy. And he just said, "Oh, Michelle, I'm going to sue him. I'm going to sue him. I'm going to sue him." And I said, "Okay, well, how much are you suing for?" "Oh, $4,000. I said, you could make $4,000 tripping over a rock. You
You
direct
paid it
movies
as a retainer to the lawyer.
and I said, and it's not
More.
even that. I just said, do you want to have that reputation that
Yeah.
now you're suing this and that over, now, I mean, there's legitimate reasons to sue, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah, of course.
or just go make another movie and, and it's like,
So
well,
basically you're saying don't sweat the stuff and just
yeah,
accept
because
it.
honestly, that's the most challenging part. We get to make movies, guys.
Yes.
This is the dream. And I was going through a hard time last week, and I had American Airlines on the phone on one phone, and I was on the phone with some other very well-known people in the industry, and the woman from American Airlines, she was hearing who I was talking to on speaker, but I asked her to please stay on hold. I had to book some flights, and she just said, "Michelle, your worst day is my dream." Like that's like what a great day you're having, because even though these are your problems, look at what you're doing. And she can hear who the actor was on the phone and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And she loves the actor apparently, and so she just said, "Oh my God, I can't believe that this is like what you're doing." And she said, "Your worst day is like a dream to me." And I thought that
Well, yeah, you're right. You get to
very,
work on movies. That's
very
what it is.
humbling. Yeah, very humbling. But yeah, if you can
We
just,
forget that.
yeah, just don't get, I don't know if I could say this, but don't get pissed off too easy, guys. Everything comes and goes. Learn how to solve the problem, get creative. There's always a way, out if you're in a corner. If you ever watch Suits, I don't know if you guys ever watch Suits,
Yeah.
but Harvey Specter, he always has these great answers, and he's like, never get backed up into a corner or something like that. And I thought, yeah, that's really good advice, because there's always,
That-
there's always a way out. Not
that-
always, but again, we're making movies. We're here to help the world escape from the hardship of the real world, and give them something fun to enjoy and get popcorn. And that's my favorite thing to do with my son. Is we love going to the movie theater. And during COVID they kept saying, "Oh, the theaters are done, the theaters are done." I said, "Oh no, they're not." I'm like what is it, A+ member. I don't even know what status they give, but I'm like the highest member, because I go to the movies so much with my son, and we'll see the same movie over and over again if it's a good movie. And we see movies that I don't even know that are coming out, but if it just has an element that I think is going to be enjoyable, I go buy that expensive popcorn and I just go. I mean, now it's always free because I go so often that they just give me the popcorn for free, and I just go and enjoy these movies. And I love sitting there in a room full of people, hearing everybody laugh at the same time, everybody gasp at the same time. And it's like, that's the magic of movie making.
It
It's
is the magic. It is. We work in a magical industry. I absolutely agree. And I think it's a privilege to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time with me today and really diving into into your world so deeply. It is really much appreciated.
Thank you for
And sorry it took so much longer. I'm just looking at the clock. I feel so bad. But I could listen to you all day, honestly. You have great stories. Thank you very much, Michelle. And please go. I know you have to pick up your son from school. Go pick up your son. Say hi from me. I know. And thank you again for all this amazing advice and all this amazing insight.
Thank you, Jeanette.
Have a great day.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.